She rides home at noon, March 415 CE. The Alexandrian sun, usually a benevolent golden eye, now burns like a harsh spotlight glinting off paving stones. The bronze roof of the Caesareum, and chillingly the sharpened roof tiles clutched like daggers. The air is thick with spices and fear. In her chariot, Hypatia's fingers, usually tracing the elegant curves of an astrolabe, rest on a rolled manuscript from last night's lecture, a proof that a planetary orbit can be written as a perfect conic. For her, this isn't only geometry, it's the voice of the divine in number, the cosmos humming with intelligible harmony. A tile strikes the wicker with a dull surgical thud. Cold dread rises. Her gaze stays steady, fixed on a farther horizon. Within minutes, Alexandria's brightest mind will be destroyed, and a question will echo through centuries. Why was a geometry lesson, pure knowledge, worth murdering for? Keep watching. The answer is older than the lighthouse and flickers still, barely perceptible, in the corners of our own century. It's a story about the flame of intellect and the shadows that try to smother it. Imagine Alexandria in the 5th century, a city that pretends it holds every scroll worth reading, every argument worth having. The great library's glory has long since dimmed, burnt, rebuilt, cannibalized by neglect and conflict, but its temperament remains. Lecture halls ring like the royal quarter, like firing neurons in an old, brilliant skull. This isn't just a city, it's a living mind. Spice stalls breathe cinnamon and frankincense into dry air. Dye works stain the harbour purple, a mirror of the city's polyphony, Greek, Coptic, Hebrew, Latin, Syriac, the accents of Kush and Persia, all arguing over pepper, over philosophy, over parables. And in the midst of this chatter, a teenager follows her father, Theon, through columned light, Hypatia. She learns to divide the circle into 360 parts, not only for sailors, because, as Theon whispers, proportion is the language of the gods do not mangle. A revelation. Order is intrinsic, disclosed by number. Years later, when her students called her simply the Philosopher, she repeats the line with the same quiet conviction. She wears the rough wool cloak of a teacher. She rides unescorted through dangerous streets. At noon, she lectures publicly on Plato's Timaeus. Free, so dock workers can sit beside senators under the same sky of thought. In Alexandria, she is not only a scholar, she is the city's evidence that intellect and spirit can share a table. Try to circle a square with only straight edge and compass, and you'll feel a maddening itch. The mind yearning towards an order that keeps stepping just beyond reach. Hypatia isn't concerned with whether you win the problem. She cares that while you strive, your soul stretches towards harmony. Number, she tells a hall scented with tar and sweat, is not a tool, it's a tuning. Like a musician finding a universal pitch, mathematics retunes the human soul to the cosmos' hidden music. She performs as she teaches, mapping the stars to parchment so a planet's anxious retrograde becomes a perfect epicyclic flower. Students swear the diagrams hum, not only in parchment, whisper, but the music of the spheres. Most historians call it theurgical mathematics. Theurgy, sacred action, lifts the soul by likeness to the divine. Hypatia doesn't need the word religion in her notes. Every proof ends with a tacit liturgy. So it is. So the soul may become. She stands in the Neo-Pythagorean current. All things are in sympathy with number. A priestess of reason whose ratio is a right. Like Apollonius of Tyana, she uses geometry and sound to calibrate consciousness. Mathematics becomes a liturgy of the mind. By the early 400s, Alexandria is nominally Christian, yet spiritually plural. The old gods still outnumber the new on doorposts and in household shrines. Hypatia's hall is the rare place with such distinctions loosen their grip. Pagans copy her planetary chords. Christians annotate margins with Cairo. A Jewish merchant's son sketches a menorah besides a hyperbola and labels both light. She teaches that Plato's one and the Gospel's logos are not enemies but synonyms, different windows opening on the same brightness. It works because she refuses priestly power. No ordinations, no blessings, no factional rites. Her vow is to explain. That radical neutrality protects her until it becomes the wick her enemies grasp. Hypatia embodies the feminine logos. Sophia joined to compassion. Her lectures on Plato and Plotinus are living invocations, not performance of rhetoric, but theurgy of mind. Nous theios, the divine intellect. To contemplate order is to become luminous with it. Enter two men whose feud will ignite the city. Orestes, imperial prefect, governed by compromise. And Cyril, new bishop, governing by decree. Their quarrel absurdly begins with the actors mocking the bishop and Orestes fining them. Monks riot. The prefect is bruised. From bruise grows a political war. Letters fly to Constantinople. Mobs gather. Symbols are recruited. Both sides look to Hypatia. To Cyril's faction, she becomes the serpent twined around Orestes, an educated pagan bewitching the city's order. To Orestes, she is proof that classical wisdom can coexist with Christian rule. Pluralism embodied. Hypatia wants none of it. She keeps teaching. She corrects Cyril's theology in public, gently but firmly. She urges Orestes to reconcile. The city holds its breath. In the bread queues of 414, whispers ripen. She's ensorcered the prefect. The Nile won't rise till she's gone. Grain prices spike. Fear looks for a culprit. And into that fear, zealous brothers sharpen roof tiles. Sermons curdle. Philosophy becomes Satan's arithmetic. Hypatia refuses guards. Truth, she believes, needs no shield. She sends a commentary on Diophantus Arithmetica to a student in Athens with a note. No quotation, but unmistakable sentiment. Numbers outlast mobs. She's right about posterity, but the present has already turned. Morning is crisp and cool. Hypatia steps into her chariot with the day scrolls beneath the bench. A band of parabolani, lay hospital workers who in some sources appear as fierce street muscle, block her path. The driver turns towards the Caesareum. hoping stone still counts as sanctuary. It does not. They drag her inside at the corner of King and Canopic. What follows, recorded by Christian and pagan sources alike, is atrocity. She's seized, beaten, and gruesomely mutilated. Her body is burned, her ashes scatter on the delta wind. Socrates Scholasticus, a Christian historian, condemns the killing as utterly at odds with the faith spirit. But the deed is done. In the silence after, Alexandria learns a brutal equation. When politics plus piety divides a woman into parts, what remains is not only sorrow but fear. And the city's last sanctified image of reason is gone. Erasure begins quickly. Cyril promotes a safer philosopher. Orestes issues a condemnation, then recedes to Constantinople. Students scatter to Athens, to Gaza. Anywhere lectures outrank lynch mobs. For centuries, her name dims. The enlightened refashions her as a martyr of reason. Victorians paint her in pure white with an astrolabe. The 20th century calls her the last librarian. Each age invents the Hypatia it needs. The real woman remains lost with her writings, a few letters, some testimonies, synopses, and the silhouettes her students saved. Still, the outline is clear. A philosopher of luminous rigour whose classroom outlived the room. Myth 1. Hypatia was a 20-year-old beauty. Well, she was likely in her 50s. Seasoned, authoritative, a voice hoarse from decades of teaching. That fact deepens the crime. Not the fall of innocence, but the assassination of an established mind. Myth 2. Christians hated science. The story is narrower and harsher. Factions hated rivals. Many Christians engaged in classical learning. What threatened was an independent locus of authority. Neoplatonism as a competing vision of order. And myth 3. The library burnt the day she died. The library had suffered losses for centuries. Her death was not the final conflagration, but symbolic epilogue, a sign that plural civic intellect was no longer safe. We torch these myths not to diminish her, but to see her, so we don't remurder her with tidy fictions. Picture. A candle passed hand to hand through gathering dark. The wax changes, the flame remains itself. That is Hypatia's legacy. Her conic section tradition survived in Greek and Arabic works. Centuries later, that same geometry fed the mathematical toolkit that Copernicus and Newton would recast for a new sky. Synesius of Cyrene, her student, later a bishop, carried Neoplatonic colour into Christian song, a tint felt in later chant. The chain of knowing endured, often forgetting that it's a chain. The point is not specific relics pinned to famous desks, but the steady migration of a method, contemplation as clarity, ratio as reverence, inquiry as devotion. Light keeps fighting to stay lit. So what do we do with her legacy? First, refuse to trade complexity for comfort. The easy story that faith and science must duel is a modern myth. Hypatia taught both under one roof. She didn't see a chasm, she saw bridges. So seek them. Second, treat every equation like a prayer. Check your work with rigour and ask whom it serves. Rigour can be compassion translated into steel and ink. Knowledge bears responsibility. And finally, Keep reading, keep asking. Hypatia feared not death so much as amnesia. The city that stops asking why. Every library card, every midnight rabbit hole, every honest why is a small resurrection. Your curiosity is a wick. If this story lit a spark, subscribe and share. Flames die when we forget to tend them, and tell me in the comments, which forgotten mind should we remember next? Centuries from now, when archaeologists sift Nile's silt, perhaps they'll lift a charred roof tile etched with a single Greek theta, theorema, a seeing. They'll wonder what heartbeat once lived behind the mark. Tell them it belonged to a woman who believed the universe rhymes, that its deepest truths echo in smallest parts. Tell them she taught that ratio isn't just a calculation, it is compassion, cast in compass and ink. Tell them that each time we chart a trajectory or unravel a problem, we echo her quiet certitude. The world, for all its seeming chaos, makes fundamental sense, and so with courage can we. They tried to scatter her to the wind, but wisdom is particulate. It settles everywhere, in a margin, in the hush before the proof clicks. In a way, a child asks, why? Hypatia's flame is not a relic. It is a verb. Keep it.